Well, good morning, y'all. This is Ginger with Ginger Snap Thrifting. Today, for DIY gift number 9, I'm going to show y'all how to make this darling little tote bag out of easily found items. It's going to take just real basic sewing skills, and it's going to come in at under $7. So, I hope you enjoy this DIY Christmas gift. Well, I was in Dollar Tree the other day and I saw these cute dish drain mats with pumpkins. So pretty for fall. And I thought, I'm going to make a tote bag out of these, and then I can fill it with, whatever for a hostess gift for Thanksgiving. Do y'all get invited to people's homes for Thanksgiving or around that season? Maybe even just for a Halloween type get together. It's always nice to take a little gift bag with a little token in it for your hostess, or it could be a big gift bag with a big gift in it for your hostess. That's up to you. But anyway, I saw these and I thought these would make cute little bags. So you need 2 dish drying mats from Dollar Tree, and these are 12 inches by 18 inches long. And then you need 2 fat quarters of fabric, or the same amount of yardage of fabric. So you can get fat quarters at Dollar Tree, and right now they have fun fall patterns and fun fall colors, and I did not buy fat quarters because if you know me, I have plenty of fabric. So I went through my stash and I found this leftover piece of yardage in my stash, and I thought it would look pretty with the teal colored pumpkins. I really like teal, and I really like teal at fall. So that's what I'm going to use. So let me move this over to the cut table and I will show y'all how we're going to begin. And listen, if you have a basic sewing machine and basic bare bones beginner skills, you can make this bag. All right, I'm at my cut table. I have laid out my fabric here, and this is folded in half because I need 2 pieces folded in half. I'm going to lay one of the dish mats on top, and then I'm just going to cut out the same size 2 pieces. Okay, I've got this cut out. You don't have to try and get too specific with the size. It's a little bit bigger. That's okay. We'll take care of that later. But now I need to decide what kind of handles I want to put on this. Now I thought to start with I would use this cotton nautical rope from Dollar Tree. It's a nice cotton blend, and let me show you. If you want to use this is going to be a lot faster, but what you want to do is cut this tape off and unroll it and kind of flatten that out. You see how it's twisted? You want to flatten that out to sew over it, because if you try to sew over that, it's going to be hard to sew over. So you want to flatten it out. And you can use that, and I would make 3 or 4 passes, and when I'm sewing I'll show you where I would do this at. But I decided I have so much fabric and don't need any more scraps. I'm going to take my remnant here and I'm going to cut some pieces to make my straps. So I want a strap on this side, a strap on that side to pick up and carry. And I don't ever like my strap to hang down longer than my bag. So because my bag is 12 inches, I'm going to cut my strap 11 inches times 2, which is 22 inches. Okay, I cut my 2 little strips. I cut them about 3 inches wide by 22 inches long. Now I'm going to fold these right sides together. I'm going to run a 1/4 inch seam down here, and I'm going to turn them right side out then. All right, I've got my straps stitched together, right sides together, so they're inside out, with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And you always want to back stitch a couple of stitches at the beginning and at the end. Now we want to turn these inside out, and an easy way to do it is to take just a basic safety pin. We're going to open it up, and I'm just going to stick it through like this, just through one side. Just through one side. So it's still open, see? And then, tip this a little bit. You want to stick it inside and start kind of working this over top of the pin. And what this does is it kind of carries this end, will carry it down to the other end. And you got to kind of work it sometimes, but just get that done. Just take your time and you'll get to the end. Okay, here's our two straps. Now if you use the rope, of course you don't have to do this part, but I'm not using rope, remember? You could also use cotton twill tape. There's all kinds of items you can use for these straps. All right, now I'm going to kind of finagle this around so that the seam is pretty much in the center. And then I'm going to take this over to my iron and I'm going to press it so that I have a crisp edge on each side. All right, I've got my straps pressed. See the seams kind of in the center. I'm going to put these back on the sewing machine, and I'm going to do a 1/4 inch here and a 1/4 inch on this edge seam allowance, and maybe one in the center depending on how it looks. Now let me just say, this is going to make a thin strap. If you want something that feels more substantial, you could use multiple layers of fabric. You could put a strip of quilt batting in there, or you could put some kind of cording in there. Well, okay, I have my strap stitched, and I did give a center stitching too. Now what this stitching does is, to start with, it keeps your strap from rolling, but it also gives it a little bit of character, a little bit of design, a little bit more grip and body. Now the next thing to do is to pin these straps on the bag pieces, the outside of the bag pieces, where we want them to go. Now you don't want to get too close to the corners because we're going to make this a box bag, so it's going to have sides. So with your seam side up, you want to figure out where you want to lay these. And I am going to come in about 4 inches from each edge. So can you see that? I'm about 4 inches there. And I'm just going to put a pin in that to hold it. And then the same distance over on this side, about 4 inches. Well, I say about, you really want to be as precise as you can. Right there. And then I'm going to do the same thing on this side. Now before you do this, you do want to decide which side you think is up and which side you think is down. This is kind of an all over pattern, but because this has these two pumpkins at the top pointing up, I think it looks better if it's turned this way. So just measure in 4 inches from your edge. Take a pin. And then 4 inches from this edge. Now, got my handles pinned on, like so, hanging down, with the seam facing up. I'm going to put one of these aside, and I'm going to take one of my linings and I'm going to put it face down on the bag. Right sides together, the pretty sides together. And I'm going to stitch right across here. I'm going to stitch in about a 1/4 inch seam. Now you want to pay attention that you're not stretching either the top or the bottom when you sew, or catching up any pleats. And you also want to make sure this handle is hanging down. Okay, now when you unfold your pieces, it should look like this. And you should have 2. Now we're going to go lay these on the cut table. We're going to trim up if we're a little long on either side. See if this side's a little long, can you see? And we're going to box the corners. Okay, I've got this laid out. These cut tables are super handy. These cutting mats have a grid on them, so you can lay your items square. So I've got this about the same, on about the same line, and I've got this edge up here lined up with the grid. So I'm going to trim this off, and I am just going to use a rotary cutter for this. And if you don't have a rotary cutter, you just lay it out real flat and nip it off with scissors, and that's just fine. It's just fine. None of this is rocket science, okay? This is a tote bag to put some groceries in, or some books in, or, you know, whatever you have to carry, or a gift. Don't want to make y'all dizzy. I just want you to see what I'm doing. When your rotary blade doesn't cut like this, it usually means it's time for another blade. And my goodness, I do go through some blades because I cut a lot of stuff. Okay, we're going to do both of these like this. All right, now I'm going to lay these together, right sides together. Make sure your handles are pulled down straight so they don't get over to the edge. And we're going to line them up the best we can. Now this is Dollar Tree dish mats, so if it's not exact, it's okay. I promise you the bag's going to be fine when we get it finished. I will say, if you're pinning and not clipping, you want long pins. Okay. All pinned together. Now we want a box bottom, so this sits flat. So to do that, get this closer so you can see. Now you can do this any number of ways. I'm going to use this little square ruler, and it's got 1/4 inch increments marked on it, and it's 6 inches by 6 inches. So I'm going to cut out a 2.5 by 2.5 inch square here. So what I want to do, move my pen up here. I'm going to line this line up with 2.5 inches, okay? 2.5 inches, 1, 2.5, and then 1, 2, and a half there. Okay? And then I'm just going to draw around that. Now you always want to be careful when you use a Sharpie, because the Sharpie bleeds through. But that's on the lining, and this is so thick I doubt a Sharpie could bleed through on this dish mat. So I am at 2.5 inches, 2.5 inches. Make sure I'm good there. All right, I'm just going to draw around it. Put a pin in it. Now I'm going to turn this over and do the same thing on these two corners. 2.5 inches, 2.5 inches. And remember, measure twice, cut once. Double check your measurements before you mark, and then again before you cut. Two and a half, 2.5. Okay. Now we're going to cut these out. Cut up. Cut over. This side. Cut up. Oops. Now down here. Here. And cut here. All right, now we'll take this back to the sewing machine to do some sewing. Okay, now we're going to stitch the sides. We're going to stitch, you can tell it's the side because it's got both the lining and the dish drain fabric on it. Both sides. And we're going to stitch the bottom together. And the bottom is just this one piece with just the dish drain. We are not going to stitch this. We're going to leave this open so we can turn this. We are going to stitch about 1 inch from either corner. You hold it up like this, you're going to stitch 1 inch here and about 1 inch here. You don't really have to measure, it's just to give you a guide and to hold this corner together is all that 1 inch is. All right, I did get real close here, so I'm going to run another line of stitching a little bit further over. I want to make sure I catch that. And this is kind of difficult to work with, this material, because it's thick and it's bulky and, you know, it's Dollar Tree. It was made probably in a sweatshop in China by people that are making a million of these an hour, so the quality's not going to be great. Okay, that's good. Now I'm going to do this one the same way. Put my finger in the corners and pull it. And again, you want to match up your seams. You want to nest them together. One going that way, one going this way. Put a pin in it and stitch it. Okay, you should have something that looks like this, with all four corners boxed out like I showed you, and with a big hole right here in your lining. So now we're going to reach in here, we're going to grab the corner, and we're going to pull it out. Now a lot of people will want to leave a small opening to turn an item. This dish drain mat is really bulky, and if you don't leave a big enough hole, you can stretch the edge of your fabric, of your, not of the dish drain mat, but of where you're trying to pull it through. And when you stretch it, it's real hard to close that up neatly. So poke out your corners. Look how nice that corner looks, y'all. Look how neat that looks. Doesn't that look neat? Now in a perfect world, you want the seams to match. Those are pretty close. This other one's a little bit further off. It's okay. It's still a fine bag. Now, we have to close up this hole. How are we going to do that? Well, you could take a needle and thread and stitch it, or you could just use a small machine seam, which is what I'm going to do. So I've got these two edges. I'm going to roll the edge in. See how I'm rolling it in? And I'm going to pin it every inch or so. And you want it to be the width. You want to roll in about how much your seam was. So if you start where you were sewing, you know how much the seam was there. About the same width. Sorry y'all, my words aren't always great. I know what I'm trying to say, I just don't always say it right. Okay, so I've got this one done. Now I'm going to do this other side the same way. I'm going to turn it around so I can see it and make sure I'm kind of folding it in straight and neatly, not hinky or anything. Now I don't have a ton of pins in here. I've got 3 pins in each side. If you need more pins, you use however many pins you need. If the way I'm doing it doesn't work for you, you do it what works for you. Before I close it, I'm going to reach in here. I'm going to make sure these little corners are pushed out. Not that I couldn't do it later, but it's just easier to do it now. Easier, a little bit faster. I'm all about do it the fastest way possible, y'all. I'm always looking for a shortcut. Now, I've got it like this. I'm going to grab the 2 seams. I'm just going to pull. I'm not pulling hard, just firmly. See, I'm pulling right here and right there, that little bit I stitched. I'm pulling it firmly. And now I'm going to go along here. I'm going to pin the 2 edges together. You see how I'm doing that? take that pin out. I'm just pin it through both sections. I'm going to do this all the way down. Try to keep your little edges as even as possible, because you don't want to take up a big seam here. You want a small seam here, like you would call it edge stitching. You want to attempt to stitch right along the edge, just enough to catch that edge in. So I'm good. So sorry. Ooh. All right, back to the sewing machine. I'm going to edge to stitch this little edge. So I'm going to start back here where I'd already stitched it together, that little 1 inch. I'm moving my needle over all the way to the right. I can do that on this machine, and that way I can line up the edge right with the edge of the foot, and the needle will edge stitch. Now if you can't do that, you know, probably your machine will move over to the right and to the left, your needle, so you just need to figure out how to do that. And if it won't, then you just put it in there and you do the best you can. No one's ever going to see the stitching but you, and you're not going to see it once you finish this bag out. But can you see? Can you see how small that seam is? It's very, very narrow. Edge stitching, y'all. It's a sewing term that a lot of people don't know, even people that have sewn a lot. I found this out when I said it in a group of ladies that are pretty accomplished seamstresses. I said I'm going to edge stitch it, and they didn't really understand what I meant. So maybe there's another term for it. I don't know. That's just what we've always called it. My mama taught me to sew, and my grandma on my daddy's side taught her. Make sure you back stitch on both ends, y'all. You don't want it unraveling. I'm gonna snap this. Now, I'll make sure y'all can see how narrow that little seam is. And I want to make sure it's caught on both sides, so I'm checking both sides, and it looks good. Now, we're almost done. Woohoo! This is easy. All right, we're just going to push this down in. I'm going to push the little corners of the lining down in to the corners of the outside of the exterior of the bag. Now this is what we have. We have a bag. All right. In most bags, you would want to roll this all the way in like this. And you could do that on this, but it's going to be kind of hard. I think it's going to be hard because this is bulkier than the lining, because this has got that serged edging that gives a little bulk around it, you know, of the dish mat. So what if we just leave that much showing across the top? That's not going to make that much of a difference in your bag, and it's just going to be cute. So what we're going to do is go around, we're going to pin it. And we want this lining pulled over as tight as we can against that edging. So I'm going to pin that, and then I'll be back and show you our next step. Okay, I'm pinned all the way around. Now when you get to the straps, pull them up, make sure they're pulled up square, not hinky, not catawampus, and put a pin in those too. And we're going to stitch right over them. We're going to try to edge stitch right along this edge now. So it won't be our right edge, it'll be our left edge we'll be stitching along. Putting my needle in the center. take your time. If you need to take your time, I need to take my time. I'm not always the straightest stitcher. Even if I have been doing this since I was about 12 years old. So that makes me with several decades of sewing experience, y'all. I'm not gonna say how many. Hope y'all are enjoying my jazzy Christmas music. I start playing Christmas music about July every year because I start my Christmas projects. Now, if you used rope for the handle, then every time I stitched over the rope, I would make 2 or 3 passes. And maybe even some zigzag passes over it. Because it is a thread type end, and you certainly don't want it to pull out. Now, I always like to cut the ends of the thread where I'm going to try and come back in here before I get there, so I don't stitch over some of those ends and have a hard time getting them out. And I'm going to back stitch. Alrighty, y'all. Push our lining back in. And here we are. How cute is this? Cute little box bottom bag set up. You could put your little tab on it, hold it together, or a little snap in there. I may put a little snap in there. If you want it the sides boxed, you would just go fold it in and just run you a little seam down there. So it would make a little side, and that would be real cute too. And then you'd have an open little square bag. I kind of like this. I kind of like this shape. I like that shape like that real well. I think that's pretty cute. So, like I said, you could do this as a gift for somebody. Maybe someone carries their Bible to church, and they could use a bag to carry their things in. Maybe somebody carries their lunch quite often, and they could carry it in this and then refrigerate it when they got to where they were going. A cute little beach bag, cute little gift bag. I can see it with a bottle of wine here and a bouquet of flowers here for a hostess gift. Wouldn't that be cute? There's no end to what you could do with this little bag. Well, there you have it. This little bag, if you purchased the rope handles, the fat quarters, and the dish mats at Dollar Tree, would cost you less than $7. And as you see, it took not very long to make. And if you're not talking to people and trying to explain how to make it, it'd go a lot faster. Anyway, I appreciate y'all hanging with me. I hope you enjoyed watching me make this little bag. I hope you will. Subscribe if you haven't already, and press the bell so you get notified when I have an upcoming video. I try to drop videos about twice a week. I do thrift hauls, upcycles, and right now I'm doing a series of DIY Christmas gifts for the holiday season, such as this one. Well, thank y'all so much. I hope that you have a wonderful day. I hope that God will rain his blessings down on you and your family. This is Ginger with Ginger Snap Thrifting.